Hello, my name is Will Hayward and I am an author and the Welsh Affairs Editor at Wales Online and the Western Mail. Now, stay home is a phrase we've heard again and again during the pandemic. Never before have our homes had such prominence, and many of us have spent so much time within them, and so many aspects of our lives have revolved around them. Where we live has never been more important to how we live. Every election matters, but this election is about defining Wales's path out of the big challenges to our climate, to our economy, and to address the inequality that still exists in our society. In some cases, the pandemic has made the challenge even greater and the need to find solutions even more urgent. Good quality and affordable housing is part of the solution. As well as saving hundreds of thousands of tons of carbon, building 20,000 zero-carbon social homes will support over 7,000 jobs and 3,000 training opportunities across Wales and produce almost 2 billion of economic output. A good quality home also saves the NHS money. For every £1 spent on adaptations prior to a hospital discharge, there is a saving of £7.50 for health and social care. Despite big improvements in Wales's current housing stock, 155,000 households still face fuel poverty. Upgrading these homes could lead to 39% fewer hospital admissions for circulation and lung conditions, which is quite a shocking statistic when you think about it. With all this in mind, CHC has partnered with 14 other organisations to deliver these hustings to provide MS candidates with the opportunity to debate the role of good quality, affordable housing and what it plays in tackling the long-standing challenges facing people and places. We will be hearing from some of these organisations today, but the full list is available on the Here for Homes website, which we'll give you more details about later. Now, I'm going to introduce the candidates who, given there is an election in a fortnight, I've imagined have had a very quiet and relaxing few weeks. So let me introduce first Welsh Labour's Julie James, Minister for Housing and Local Government. Welcome, Julie.
Hello, very nice to be here.
Thank you. Plaid Cymru's Delyth Jewell, who's the Shadow Minister for the Future and Transforming Public Services. Hi, Delyth.
Hiya.
And David Melding, MS, from the Welsh Conservatives. Hiya, David.
On the verge of has-beenness. I'm not a candidate.
Now, David has kindly stepped in at the last minute to do this and will have to leave us at 3 p.m. But we will continue until 3:30 with the other two candidates after David goes. Now, for each section, there will be a theme, and we will play a short introductory video clip to introduce this theme. A partner organisation will then ask a question, and each candidate will have 2.5 minutes to answer. I will go to each candidate in turn. When there's 10 seconds to go, I will give each candidate a little wave just to let them know that they need to start wrapping up. So if I start waving at the camera, don't worry about that. Once we've gone through these themes, we'll then go to questions from people watching. So feel free to submit those questions for our Facebook page if you're watching on Facebook. So our first theme is the role of housing in reducing health inequalities. And I'm hoping that a video clip is about to play now. If it doesn't play, aha.
There we go.
Okay, I will now invite a representative from Crisis Cymru to ask the first question, which will go first to Julie James. And I'm hoping they're going to appear any second. If not, I can read it out. I think what I'll do, I'll read it unless someone interrupts me in the next few seconds. So this comes from Crisis Cymru.
Oh, Will, sorry, I think I'm on now.
Nick, welcome.
Hello,
Question.
So yeah, I've got a question, which is that we know that where people live has had a huge impact of their experience of the pandemic. And so given what the pandemic's exposed about issues like overcrowding, lack of suitable space, and things like the importance of a reliable internet connection, what can we do to improve the quality of housing?
To Julie James from Welsh Labour.
Thanks very much, Nick, and thanks very much, Will. So, well, we can do a lot, is the short answer. Already, since 2004, the Welsh Government has put £1.7 billion into supporting something called the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, which is something that has brought all social homes in Wales up to EPC-C standard. So that's the medium standard for fuel poverty and insulation and so on. That programme is now largely complete. There are one or two providers who didn't quite finish it during the pandemic, so we've given them an extra year, but we're up well over 97% of our social homes have reached that standard already. We continue to invest that money, and our plan, if we're the next government, is to reinvest that 1.7 billion to do the next stage of that uplift, so we can get those houses up to EPC-A, which should make sure that they're all carbon neutral, and actually compliant for our climate crisis, as well as good housing to live in. And then we've also got something called the Optimised Retrofit Programme, where we're rolling out across our social providers an experiment, really, where we've asked them to come forward with each type of house available in Wales, and then work with us to find the technology arising from our Innovative Housing Programme, which is the programme that builds the new houses, to find what will best retrofit those houses to make sure that they reach the right kinds of standards. Because we know that one size doesn't fit all. We've tried a one size fits all approach previously, and that's led to some difficulties. Although, it's been largely successful, there have been some difficulties. So we're very keen on doing that. We follow the advice of our panel, who we got together with Chris Joffe to give us advice on how to retrofit those houses. And so we're going to roll that money out to do that. And then the next bit, so I'm very aware of the amount of time I've got. Well, but it's a really complicated question. The next bit is that we've been running the Innovative Housing Programme to make sure that we can build houses in Wales that actually do what they say on the tin. So we've got 4 years of doing that, so we know which houses actually do what they say. We're now scaling those up to build all the new builds in Wales to meet that criteria. We would, if the pandemic hadn't hit, have passed the space standards that would have rolled that out across the private sector as well to make sure that all new build houses reach that standard. And the last bit of that is to make sure that the industry that goes with that provides the jobs, training and skills, and also the raw materials to make those houses with the Welsh supply chain. Sorry.
Take a breath, Julie. It's very cruel of us to ask you for very simple answers to very complicated questions, but that's the nature of these hustings, I'm afraid. So we're going to go to Delyth Jewell from Plaid Cymru next, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think that the what we need to do, they would be broadly separated into two different categories, which is in order to improve the physical quality of homes, we'd need to retrofit. We've got a policy over the next 30 years that we'd need to retrofit the entire Welsh housing stock just to bring them up to standard. And the other physical thing that I think we need to do is to improve broadband access. It was referenced in the question, because I think that when we talk about the quality of housing and the quality of life, they're kind of very closely interlinked, and we've all come to appreciate that so much more during the pandemic. I think that physically we need to improve broadband infrastructure, so we would deliver ultra fast gigabit broadband. I had to read that because I always mess that up when I'm trying to say it, to every Welsh home and business. But I think that there are other things which aren't as physical, but they're still to do with improving the quality of housing and the quality of people's feeling of security, which again has really been brought to the fore in the pandemic. I think that when we're talking about people's health and housing, we need to remember mental health as well as physical health. I think that improving people's security and sense of security and where they live is really important to people's not just mental health, but also their physical health, because obviously they're going to be very linked. So I think that that's why, for one thing, in the PRS, in the private rented sector, we would end no-fault evictions. We would want to introduce a lot of changes to kind of make the situation of renters a lot more secure. And and that's also linked into how our policy about bringing more affordable homes to create 50,000 homes over the period of the next Senedd, and they would be public homes, whether they would be council homes or bringing new stock in from old buildings that are lying empty. And then the final thing I'd say is that, again, not a physical thing to do with the homes, but to do with quality of life and improving people's sense of physical and mental health. We would make it mandatory, or we would at least want to make changes to the planning system so that they, within 5 minutes walk of all homes, there would be access to green and blue space.
Thank you very much, Della. I suppose nothing demonstrates how important broadband is by the fact we're all doing this from our homes right now. I'll go now to David Melding from the Welsh Conservatives. Thank you, David.
Yeah, well, let me try to add something that's not been said, and I think there's a very broad consensus amongst all three of us about the approach. I didn't disagree with anything that I've just heard, but I do think we need to concentrate on the 20,000 or so households that are in inappropriate accommodation, that are on waiting lists. I think that there is the greatest need. And trying to get those families into appropriate housing really is the driving priority, I think, in the sixth. There are ways to do that, but I mean, basically, building more social homes is a real help there. House building in general is not a simple solution to the housing crisis, because it takes us a long time to build, and it's only a small amount of existing stock. But I think for those people, we need to come up with very effective schemes. So it's a lot of households, 60 or 70,000 people. So that would be my first priority. I think something Delith just finished on is very important, and we need to think about the wider environment. 100 years ago, we would have been very concerned about physical health and TV in particular. We now have a physical concern, and it's COVID. And I think we've really seen how challenging it is for families to live in constructed spaces and not to have nearby really quality open space. The Victorians, were the great park builders, weren't they? And I do think that we need to invest in those parts of our communities that lack space, and really emphasize that. And then that helps also with the well-being issues which have come to the fore in the last 20 years, perhaps more, which are very important. But it really is a reminder, isn't it? We've come back to a real physical imperative in health with COVID, and 100 years, 150 years ago, it would have been TV. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, David. We're going to go on to our next theme now, which is the role of housing supporting a green and sustainable economic recovery. I think we've got another video clip coming up any second.
Because they say that they listen to us, and they, we believe them, and they say, oh, we're going to get new hostels, we're going to do more houses, and then something else comes up then, and they don't. We need to be able to believe in what they're saying. They've got to prove to us that they mean what they're going to say.
But there needs to be a cross-party solution found between them, and not looking to score political points. So they could engage with each other rather than think of the people rather than the headlines.
For people that are leaving prison and mental health hospitals and things like that. I mean, they aren't just put in a plate where there's no help, none whatsoever.
If I could change anything, it'd be to have more support out there for single dads.
And it seems to be a crisis out there at the moment in my eyes. And I want to know, what are they going to do to change the situation and help us move on and like end homelessness? What are they actually going to do instead of just saying it's time for action, not words?
It was a powerful video there. We're going to go to the Federation of Master Builders to ask our next question, which will be going first to Delif Jewell. I know the second I talk that they're going to come in, so
Yeah.
let's go. Okay, I'll read this out unless I'm interrupted. So, all parties have committed to build significant numbers of homes. To end the housing crisis in Wales, we need all parts of the housing sector working at full capacity towards this shared aim. However, there has been notable and continuous demise in the number of homes built by SMEs over the years. Do you think it's important to reverse this decline? And if so, how would you help to achieve it? If we go first to you, Delif.
Yes, I do agree that we need to reverse this decline. So from the Plaid Cymru's manifesto, the question, and thanks to the Federation of Master Builders for this, it refers to how all the parties, we are promising to build more homes and certainly to build more affordable homes. We implied, I think, that we are promising what would be the biggest house building program or public house building program since the 70s, and it would be led crucially by the public sector, not just the private sector. I think fundamentally we need to move to shift the balance away from very large developers that are having all of the levers in terms of determining not just what houses get built, but what type of houses, whether or not they're connected to communities, because houses shouldn't just be standalone buildings. They should be connected to public services. They should be fostering and reinvigorating the community where they're based. So we would create an autonomous Welsh Planning Inspectorate called Cynllunio Cymru. We'd bring in a number of changes to the planning system that would be related to this, and we'd strengthen the preference for brownfield sites over greenfield sites, again linking into what we were talking about in the last question as well, focusing on renovation rather than demolition in planning and in housing and environmental policy as well. But I do think that on the margins of this question, it refers to or it's nodding towards this need to bring housing back into the context of the social contract almost. I think that for as long as we have large developers who have so much power, then the profit margins they can make on very large homes are going to be so much more significant. So of course they're always going to be wanting to make particularly large homes, and then even if there's something in the contract that they're meant to make or build a certain proportion of more affordable homes, it just doesn't get done, which is why I think that there are lots of changes we need to see being brought in, not just in terms of how we build the homes, but who gets the contracts, and making sure that we actually are shoring up communities in all that we're doing. Oh, I got to the end before you'd even waved it.
Well, you were 3 seconds away from getting a wave, so
right.
that was very succinct. David Melding, how do you respond to this question from the Federation of Master Builders?
Well, let me focus on the SME side. I should say the family business in which I was brought up is not mine. It belongs to one of my brothers. Was in the building sector, not building houses, but putting in, fine features, basically, like fireplaces. And Hales was one of the great SMEs in the Neath area, and a huge contract. And I think the big difference between the 1930s and the late 50s and 60s is really the scale of building that was undertaken by SMEs. And SMEs are fleet of foot. They offer more variety in housing styles, and they can cope with smaller plots. And this massively improves the built environment and its appearance. And it also means that our capacity to build is increased very significantly. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we've lost really in the last 10 or 50, well, 20 years to be fair, recently. And a lot of SMEs have moved into maintenance and repair and extensions. And it's so difficult in the planning system to get 3 or 4 plots, especially for an SME. It's a huge investment to put time into that. So I think we really need to look at that. And the second point I would say is that FE colleges have a really sound record in providing building skills, but we need to up that a lot and emphasize to young people what an excellent profession and trade building is, especially with the new materials. And there again, I think is a great opportunity, and I'm sure we've all gone around various FEs looking at the building training department, and it's, it is inspiring. So I think that's another area, and it's a great activities in terms of the foundational economy. Money spent on building is nearly always retained in the local community. So that's what I would be aiming at, and I'll just leave my remarks focused on the SMEs.
Thank you very much. I'd just say, David, your audio is crystal clear until you turn towards your left shoulder, and then we lose you a little bit. So
I do apologise.
No, it's fine. Let's go to Julie James from Welsh Labour.
Thank you, Will, and nice to see Ivan, even if we didn't hear him. What you'll hear is that there's a broad consensus amongst the three of us. We've been old sparring partners, but also consensually working together across the Senedd term, because we absolutely agree that we need more homes in Wales. We need them to be built by Indigenous Welsh firms in the foundation economy, using a Welsh supply chain and utilising the skills that we have in Wales. We've taken a number of steps to do that already. We've got a liaison forum that we run with the construction industry, and that has a whole house building theme running through it as well. We've listened to what the SME sector has had to say, and we've put in things like the Property Development Fund and the Wales Stall Sites Fund to assist SMEs with making sure that they've got the land available to build housing, and are able to compete, if you like, with the big house builders who've got big tracts of land already banked. We announced that Help to Buy Wales would continue until at least March next year, in order to help people buy the houses that the SME builders build. And we also, just to address the point that David just made, we announced a 40 million Self-Build Wales scheme, which would allow people to build on those small plots that are around the place. And what we did to assist with that was we worked with our local authorities to get a number of pre-existing designs for those houses pre-approved for planning. So we really understand why the SME sector has been under the cosh, with the big house builders expanding out, and we've done a great deal of work in the last, certainly the last 3 years, to try and redress that. We also put the Development Bank of Wales in place to get funds out to the SME sector, and we've got around 1.1 billion of Welsh Government funds tied up in that. We've worked really hard with local authorities and with our registered social landlords to make sure that we implement something called a Can-Do Toolkit, which Keith Edwards, I imagine, is in the audience. I can't see the audience, but if Keith's not in a housing hustings, then I'll have to go out and eat my hat with ketchup. So I'm sure he is there, and he developed a great toolkit for how we could get procurement to work better for SMEs in Wales, and how we could get Indigenous firms involved in that. So we're really interested in implementing that, and a dynamic purchasing system has been put in place to support the participation of SME construction companies with our house builders. So we've done a great deal. There's a lot more that we can do, and I'm really keen on working with the sector to make sure that we can address many of the issues that they raise with us during the liaison in the forums.
Thank you very much, Julie. I should add, if people have got questions, please, and you're on Zoom, please just pop them in the Q&A section, which should just be at the bottom. And if you're joining us on Facebook, please leave a question in the comments, and we'll come to them towards the end. So theme 3 is something I've covered a lot in my role at Wales Online and the Western Mail, and I'm afraid it's another very broad topic we're going to ask you a question on, and it's the role of housing in reducing poverty. We're going to go now to an introductory video.
My name is Fiona and I'm 20. I became homeless at 19 and began sofa surfing with friends and eventually anyone that would take me in. A lot of the time in unsafe environments or surrounded by bad influences. Home for me is security, warmth and protection. Home is being able to store your possessions without them being sold or stolen. Home is living fear-free without the threat of violence or mental abuse. Home is feeling comfortable in your surroundings. Home is a safe space.
We're now going to go have a question from one of our partners, Cymorth Cymru.
Thanks very much, Will, and thank you to all the representatives here today. We know that simply putting a roof over someone's head is not enough to end homelessness, and housing support services are absolutely critical to helping people to overcome trauma, maintain tenancies and avoid homelessness. Only one of your manifestos mentions the Housing Support Grant, which is the primary funding stream for homelessness and housing support services. So will you today commit to maintain the ring fence around the Housing Support Grant during the next term and increase the funding with inflation throughout the next term? Thank you.
I'm going to go first to David Melding.
Well, yes, I must apologise. I don't know which party has that in the manifesto. I know it's our policy to support all schemes of this nature, I often rolled up in Housing First concepts. Preserving the vitality of tenancies is really important. And we've, I think, seen some new ambitions. We might talk about homelessness in the next question. But the reason tenancies break down is not the tenant's fault usually. It is a lack of adequate support, and when particularly dealing with vulnerable groups, write that in capital letters. And it costs, but it's not an exorbitant cost. It's one that should be happily invested in. And I think that the Senedd has been slightly. It's lacked focus really on emphasising this element of housing policy sometimes, and you can argue about the figures because it's really the uncertainty of the programs or shifting the programs and calling them something else and putting them in another stream that creates quite a lot of anxiety, I think. But I do think if you're looking at housing policy, especially for the most vulnerable, then you have to be looking at housing support. It simply is as important as buildings themselves.
Thank you very much, David. Katie put in the chat, but it was the Welsh Conservatives who had it in their manifesto.
I was hoping it was.
We're now going to go to Julie James.
Thanks, Will, and lovely to see Katie here too. I always admire Katie's ability to get and ask for increased support for Housing Support Grant into every hustings, and I can almost I can't see her, but I know she's smiling as I say that. So I was delighted to be able to put an extra 40 million into the budget for Housing Support Grant for next year, because of all the reasons David just said. As I say, there's a broad consensus amongst us about where the housing need is in Wales. One of the things I've been most proud of during the pandemic, because there have been some silver linings, is Wales's response to the homelessness crisis that we would have seen on the streets of Wales without the amazing response of all of the partners across Wales, both in the statutory sectors and in the voluntary sectors and across the support services and the mental health sector coming together and so on. I'm immensely proud of that. And I'm also really, really proud of the fact that we were able to say that we would maintain that throughout the pandemic. There's been no falling back in Wales, which is a contrast, I'm afraid, to across the border, and that we've been very clear that there'll be no going back. So we had a group of people chaired by John Sparks from Crisis working on a homelessness action plan for us before the pandemic struck. We thought that would take 3 to 5 years to implement, and in fact it took 12 weeks. So it's amazing what people can do when they come together, as David's just said. So the Housing Support Grant is absolutely pivotal to that. Without the support for those people going into housing, sometimes for the first time, and the sustaining, their ability to sustain their tenancies, to get the skills they need to sustain a tenancy, and basically to have their support needs met, we would never have been able to do what we've been able to do. So it's absolutely pivotal to that, and it's a fundamental part of our housing strategy that we have the Housing Support Grant. you know, we absolutely agree with David as well about the need for certainty over it. I mean, one of the things we'd very much like is to have some certainty over the Welsh Government budget altogether. We're still on a one-year cycle all the time. But I can absolutely tell Katie that we will, of course, if Welsh Labour is the next government, be putting the housing support grant front and centre of our housing policy, as we always have.
Thank you very much. And Delyth Jewell from Plaid Cymru.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Katie. So yes, we absolutely will commit to protecting this funding and increasing spending on tackling homelessness to 10 million a year in line with the recommendations put forward by Crisis. So as both David and Julie have been saying, it's hard to refer to anything in the scope of COVID as a good story, but I suppose one of the byproducts that's come about that has been positive is that we've seen that actually it is possible to almost eradicate homelessness. And yes, there's going to be so many things that will creep back to how they were before, but my goodness, the next Welsh Government has to make sure that homelessness figures is not one of those things. So some of the things that I think that we need to do, not just in the long term, but now we need to end no-fault evictions, as I was saying in one of the previous answers, in the rented sector. That is something that the Plaid has been pushing for. We would grant local authorities and housing associations more discretion so that they to not evict tenants if the reason that they've fallen into arrears is because of welfare cuts, because, you know, people's lives are complicated, and we all know that because of complications and really quite cruel things that come about because of the welfare system that we have, it can send people's lives into a spiral. And so I think that there needs to be more discretion, there needs to be more compassion in situations like that. And we would also end the placement of under 18s in bed and breakfast accommodation. I think that we need to make sure that as we're moving out of the pandemic, there's been a lot of talk about, understandably, emergency accommodation. I know this is a semantic point, but sometimes when we talk about accommodation, it's accommodating a need, and it needs to be going further than just accommodation. It needs to be actually housing that meets people's needs, and it needs to be more holistic. So I hope that we can build on this in the future.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go on to back to the theme of the role of housing in reducing health inequalities. We're going to, there won't be a video for this because we had it earlier. So we're going to go to the representative from CHC.
Hi everyone, it's Clarissa from CHC. We know that a warm, safe home with the right support enables people to live independent lives and keep people out of hospital. However, we are still spending a far greater proportion on funding crisis rather than prevention. How will your party work to rebalance spend over the next Senedd term?
Thank you very much. Julie James, how will your party work to address the rebalance the spend away from crisis to long-term prevention over the next Senedd term?
Thanks, Larissa. Thanks, Will. Yeah, absolutely. So there are three strands to that. The first is, of course, to ramp up the building of homes for life. So you'll know that the Innovative Housing Programme has been looking at how we can build housing that's suitable for every phase of your life, very adaptable housing, in some cases modular to the point where you can put extra bedrooms and extra bathrooms onto the side. We have those being built by factories all across Wales. I was interested that David mentioned Hale Construction, because that's certainly one of them that we've been funding to move into modular housing construction. The houses are low carbon, carbon neutral, carbon passive. There are a number of standards that we've been looking at in the Innovative Housing Programme, and those houses will not need adaptations in order to allow people to live there, regardless of the stage of their life or their disability or whatever. So I'm really pleased that we've been able to do that. Also, of course, we've got to be able to sort out the current housing stock. So we've been ramping up all of the provisions for housing adaptations in the last Senedd term. We've been able to put a whole series of grants, Disabled Facilities Grant, Enable, and so on in place. And just very recently, just as the Senedd rose, I was delighted to be able to put another 400,000 in. That meant that all small and medium disabled facilities grants can be installed without any kind of means test. So free at the point of delivery. So I was delighted to be able to do that as well. We've been able to cut down substantially on the time it takes to deliver those adaptations so that people can stay in their own homes much more safely. And the last plank of that is that we've got something called the Integrated capital fund, which allows us to work with health and social care facilities to build step up, step down housing accommodation for people who require or would require hospital accommodation or need rehabilitative type accommodation coming out of hospital. And can I just say, I do agree with Dalith entirely. The word accommodation, I'm using it all the time, I've just realised, but isn't the same as home. So actually what we're trying to do is make sure that when we do build these new houses, they are actually homes for people and homes for life, which is a really important part of it, alongside all the sustaining support services that go with it.
Thank you, Julie. Dalith Chul, how would you move away from crisis to long-term prevention?
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, I think one of the things that the crisis in the past year has shown us is that there have been lots of studies that have come out that have shown that people living in particularly cramped accommodation or in areas where poverty is much higher, they've been a lot more susceptible to getting COVID, and for lots of socioeconomic reasons, maybe people are also less likely to be able to work from home, so they're going to be in more harm's way. But there's almost a question of biosecurity here, and Julie knows that I've raised this in the Senate before, that in terms of if this were some kind of terrorist threat, then we would be taking it as society generally, I don't mean just in Wales, but we would be taking it so seriously. We'd be targeting all of our resources. And I think in terms of biosecurity, then actually tackling poverty has to be prioritized. And I know that's a slightly dramatic way of putting it, but I think that it's really true. We need to kind of flip around the way that we approach it. Yes, I agree with the need to retrofit the existing housing stock, as I was saying myself earlier as well, that we've got a plan over the next 30 years that we'd want to retrofit the entire housing stock already, and for all new housing that is built, we need to make sure it is of the right standard, that we are reducing fuel poverty, that we're reducing, well, that we want to be in a position where there are no excess winter deaths because of the quality of housing. Away specifically from housing, but I think that it has to be linked. We would establish a transformation fund so it would be creating health and care services in the community that would move away from just thinking about health as something about hospitalization, about institutional care or something like that, that actually there are ways that chronic conditions need to be treated in the community, in people's homes. And again, I think that we need to be looking at linking homes to public services very easily, so that we're not just talking about someone's home life being this, then their health being something else. They need to be interlinked more.
Thank you. And David Melding.
Well, we're in danger of just agreeing with each other, but I mean, I think it is marvelous that housing is back on the political agenda in a way it was in the 50s and 60s, where I think all parties realise that the right to a safe, warm home is just paramount. In terms of health, if I just look at keeping a home warm, that is the biggest thing you can do to improve someone's health. I think what we need to do in terms of the great transformation that's now going to go ahead in shift to green energy is use the people in the poorest households and invest in their homes to demonstrate at scale the technologies that work. And frankly, poor people shouldn't be paying anything for their heating, and we should be able to provide heating that is so energy efficient and green that we're not going to be desperately worried if they run the thermostat an extra hour or something. So that has to be the model, and then those technologies are reduced in price for those of us who can afford to purchase our homes. But there are an awful lot of people in the middle sector there that they're too much income to qualify for any social housing. But it's a tough ask for them to invest in more expensive heating systems. And that's why I want to see us really focus on the most vulnerable, develop the market and the really good technology that it delivers its great goal of warm homes that are green and inexpensive. And so that's the main thing I would say here. I think some of the other points about general health and well-being and allowing people to remain in their homes as long as possible, and if they have to move, ensuring they still remain in that community. You know, those things are very, very important. And you know, the grant schemes for disabled grants and such are really important there. And again, I think that's very, very important. It's quite a trauma for older people to move, you know, a significant distance from their social network.
Yeah, as a journalist, I've got to say I'm absolutely furious you're all agreeing with each other. Yeah, and I think what you say on poverty is absolutely right. I saw a graph, a picture of Wales the other day, and the shaded bits were where the most COVID deaths were, and you could almost overlay it with where the most deprived areas of Wales were. We're going to go on now to our next theme, which is the role of housing supporting a green and sustainable economic recovery. And this question comes from the National Energy Action Cymru.
Hi, good afternoon all. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Delith, Julie and David. It's Ben Saltmarsh here from NEA Cymru. The pandemic, as we know, has exacerbated existing inequalities, and many have been left poorer and indebted. But the green recovery is an opportunity to enrich our communities and make living standards better for people. How would you make sure the worst affected across tenure, often living in fuel poverty and in debt in the coldest homes with poor energy efficiency and using high carbon fuels, can be the first to benefit?
Go to Delith Jewell from Plaid Cymru.
Thanks for that question. I think that the first thing I'd say is that one of the I think the key word in the question is opportunity. And I'm not just saying that in a Pollyanna-ish way. I mean, there's an opportunity, but we shouldn't assume that that means that it will definitely happen. We have to make sure that we take advantage of this opportunity to enrich communities, like you say, and make sure these changes come about for the better. I think we need to be thinking about this holistically across the board. There's so many different policies that need to change. I think that, yes, in connection to what we have all been agreeing on, the need to retrofit homes, the need to make houses more energy efficient. In the welfare system, I think we need to end the use of, I mean, for those people who are still having to use prepayment meters or anything like that, I think that anything that keeps people in a state where they are having to choose whether they're going to heat their home or whether they're going to feed their children, just that needs to completely change. I mean, this is one area where possibly, Will, you will finally have us disagreeing on something, because I think that the welfare system needs to be devolved completely. I think that we need to fundamentally change the way that we approach the way that we support people who are living in poverty. I think actually on a personal level we will all agree on this. It's just that maybe some policies won't totally marry up. But I think that we need to be, I think in order to tackle this, the demands of this question fully, yes, there are certain things that we can do within the powers that we have in Wales already, but actually there's so much more that needs to happen. We need to be, frankly, I think, pushing for the devolved powers so that we can introduce a universal basic income. I think that we should at least be piloting that in Wales. I think that we need to be eradicating child poverty. That's why we would introduce a £35 a week top-up payment for all children whose families are living in poverty. We would provide free school meals for all children whose families are in receipt of universal credit. By the end of the Senedd term, we would want all children in primary school to have free school meals. All of these things are interlinked, and I think that fundamentally, again, we need to use this opportunity to be radical, devolve welfare powers.
Thank you, Delith. David Melding from the Welsh Conservatives.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we're having some division at last, because I certainly don't believe in the devolution of welfare powers broadly. But anyway, let me focus on the question and driving up standards, particularly for the poorest, and linking this to a green recovery. So we've covered some of this ground. But I think one very innovative idea we have in the Welsh Conservative Party is the need for a very effective Welsh housing survey, which would be able to look at these issues and it follows some of the best practice in the English housing survey, but take it further. And I think that would be the range of data to drive up standards and to focus on, what are the barriers amongst the poorest households, and what is it that we've got to do. And this may be something as simple as are people comfortable about running a sort of total system in their home in terms of new technology and green heating systems. If you're saying that you can't open your windows, that's quite a big ask, really, for most people, I would have thought. And if that's going to be part, as some of these models are, then we need to ensure that we put that level of support in. There's a range of things, but I do think a Welsh housing survey of great depth, really looking at the challenges, would be a great thing, and it would again ensure the Senedd follows these issues with great determination.
Thank you, David. And Julie James.
Thanks, Phil. So I think there are a number of things that we need to do in order to be able to deliver this. First of all, I've already talked about the optimized retrofit program. One of the things that program is looking at, as David says, is to look in depth at the sorts of Welsh housing we have and what will be needed to bring it up to standard. We've also asked, as part of that program, the FE colleges to work alongside the building firms to make sure we have the skills for the future to scale those products. And also we're providing funding to overskill, i.e. take on more apprentices that are needed in order to be able to provide SMEs and so on with the skilled workers of the future. We also will want to look at incentives for just homeowners to upgrade their own houses. So at the moment, mysteriously to me, if you sell your house and you've bothered to invest in it to bring it up to EPC-A, it won't have much of an additional market cost. So a house on a street that's EPC-C and a house on a street that's EPC-A will have largely the same cost at the moment. We need to make sure that we interfere in the market to make to reward people who bring their houses up to carbon standards. We need to buy electricity differently. So we've got an exemplar site here in Swansea in my colleague Mike Hedges' constituency, where he's fighting to be the candidate at the MS again, where what we're doing is we're experimenting with combining the electricity requirements of all of the housing on the estate and the new build estate that's beside it, and buying it together so that they get the best price and the greenest electricity. And actually, of course, buy electricity in sufficient numbers then to drive the market. So that's a really good series of innovations we're looking at. And then the other thing is to put a lot of pressure on the UK government around greening the grid and making sure that Wales's enormous renewable potential is met and serves the people of Wales in terms of the energy that they use. Only today, actually, I was out in a local registered landlord estate where every single house has solar panels on it as part of the City Deal Homes as Power Stations project. And I'm talking to one of the tenants there about their bills going down. And then the last thing I want to say is the UK government has recently announced that you won't be able to rent your home in the private sector if it's below EPC-E, which is a great innovation. But we fear that people will come out of the private sector if they have to retrofit their homes. Is too expensive. So we've put a scheme in place which would allow those landlords to hand their houses over to a registered social landlord or a council who would bring them up to standard, have a social tenant in there for 5 years and then give the house back brought up to standard. So those kinds of private sector schemes will also be pivotal to making sure that every single tenure gets the benefit.
Thanks very much, Julie. So you've all been so wonderfully succinct. We're actually ahead of the timing. Now, I'm aware that David needs to go at 3, so I'll ask him to answer this question first. And David, if you do need to drop off afterwards, please do. And thanks in advance for taking the time to join us today. Our final theme in the pre-prepared questions is the role of housing in reducing poverty. And the question comes from a representative from Tai Hawb.
Afternoon, all. Ross Thomas from Tai Pawb. Diolch am y cyfle. Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask a question this afternoon. As a result of the pandemic, the concept of a safe, secure and accessible home has never been more important or better understood. However, for too many people, home isn't any of these things. It's widely accepted in principle that housing is a basic human right, and one of your manifestos references it. Would you legislate in the next Senedd term to that effect? And what measures would you put in place to make this right a reality to deliver? Thanks, Will.
Thank you. And sorry if I mispronounced the organisation with my filthy anglicised tongue. We'll go to David Melding first. Thank you.
Yeah, well, again, I should apologise because in the rush to participate, I've not actually checked a housing manifesto. I've gone through all the policies in terms of the briefing note. I've not actually read the manifesto housing sector yet, as I said, I'm close to being a has-been. But it is in our manifesto, I think, and it certainly was, one of my proudest achievements, really, to get the Welsh Conservative Party in the 5th Senedd to adopt this concept of housing being a fundamental human right. There with education and health, I think it's so important that it gets re-established as a position it was after the Second World War, where there was huge investment in housing because it just seemed to be such a basic human right. Obviously, there was a great deal of rebuilding after the trauma of the war. And I mean, it's quite simple. How would it be made effective? Well, it would be to some degree, and increasing as time went on, actionable. So you could take your local authority to court, basically, if you were on a very long waiting list for years and years. And then chat, and the Welsh Government as well, potentially, and any Welsh Government, I don't mean the current one, to be partisan. So I think those are the concepts that we really need to embed so that people do have this fundamental right to shelter.
Thank you, David. And we should add, David did step in at the very last minute to help us out here. And as someone who's read all the political party in Wales's manifestos, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So I will now go to Julie James from Welsh Labour.
Thank you, Will. I cannot confess to having read all of the party's manifestos, I will say. I've read ours, though, and some of the major ones. Again, I think we're going to largely agree here. Of course, housing is a human right. The question isn't whether we'll legislate. So I think probably all three parties would say that they would legislate, but how and what the right means. So I'm very keen that by the end of the next Senedd term, we get to the point where an individual would be able to enforce their right to adequate housing. That's a very different thing from putting a general human right onto the statute book in which you say housing is a human right, but you don't actually give people the individual right to prosecute that. And I think it's important to understand the difference. So I'd really like to get at the end of 5 years to the point where we could say that each individual person in Wales could go to their local housing provider and insist on having adequate housing. We're not yet there because we do not yet have a sufficient supply of adequate housing in Wales to be able to allow that to happen. So what we need to do is make sure that the legislation matches what our ability to deliver, and that our ability to deliver is pushed right to the edge of our ambition. So we need to scale up our pilot projects, which we know have worked. We're good at pilots in Wales. We now need to scale them. So we're absolutely starting to ramp up the housing that came out of the Innovative Housing Programme to do that. We need to have all the PRS schemes, private rented sector, sorry, we're good at three-letter acronyms in government as well, private rented sector schemes, like the one I just mentioned, to make sure that landlords can bring their properties up to standard as well. And also we have several schemes that I haven't had the time to mention, which allow poorer owner-occupiers and people who have property that may be vacant because it's substandard to bring that up to standard as well. Once we've got adequate housing supply, and we can absolutely do that in the next Senedd term, each party has a number of house building targets that they're putting in place, which will deliver somewhere around 40 to 50,000 houses over the next Senedd term in both the public and private sectors. Then, of course, at the end of the Senedd term, we will be able to allow people to have that right to adequate housing that they themselves can enforce, and that's where I'd very much like to get to. So there are a series of steps on the way to that. I've discussed with virtually everybody who's already spoken in this conference what those steps are, and I'm very happy to commit to taking those steps so that we can get there.
Thank you very much. And finally, Delyth Jewell from Plaid Cymru.
I'll just say very quickly before David has to go. David, you will never be a has-been. The
Absolutely.
only hope, as I see it, for your party is that your legacy needs to live on. So please don't ever think that.
Hear, hear.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Hear, hear.
you will be missed. So yes, in answer to the question, we absolutely will commit, and that's in our manifesto, that we would enshrine a right to housing, and not just a right to housing, but a right to adequate housing in Welsh law. David, by the way, I know you've got to leave, so if you need to leave halfway through my answer, I will understand. That's absolutely fine. I think that the main way that we would need to go about doing this, yeah, as Julie was saying, there are lots of ways in which this would, I don't think there's a one thing that needs to happen, although I do think this needs to be enshrined in law, but I think practically some of the things that would need to be done at the sharp end of the scale is ensuring that we are eradicating homelessness. So some of the things that we'd need to do, we'd need to introduce a rapid rehousing policy, appoint a national director for housing first throughout Wales, require local authorities to adopt this model. So anyone who experiences homelessness, they would be guaranteed their own room, not just floor space. We'd repeal Section 74 of the Housing Act Wales that allows local authorities to end their duty to end homelessness, even if someone is still presenting as homeless. We would want to bring an end permanently to the implementation of no recourse to public funds conditions in Wales. Obviously, a lot of this is dependent on cooperation from Westminster. We would end, I've already said, Section 21 evictions. That is something that Mark Drakeford did promise to do when he was running to be First Minister. That hasn't yet happened, or there's progress, but that is something that I think that we need to see actually happening. And we would scrap the bedroom tax. Again, a lot of this is interlinked with welfare. As soon as we have powers to do that, that is something that we would need to do in order to make sure there is a right to housing. Oh, you stayed to the end, David. Thank you.
I did, and as I leave, I should, in my incompetent way, say that I read the long policy document, which in my party is quite different from the summary that goes into the manifesto. So where people have asked specifics, I've been at sea a bit. But there we are. With that rather incompetent thought, I leave you. Bye-bye.
Take care, David.
Hi, David.
Bye, David.
Okay, we're now going to move on to the questions from the audience. So we've had quite a few questions in, but please do keep them coming. Our first question comes from Ken Barker. To meet the house building targets, many apartments have been built in brownfield sites in places like Cardiff Bay and other pre-industrial areas. Are these meeting local housing needs and contributing to sustainable communities? Do either of you want to take that first?
I'm happy to go for that. So I've made a little bit of a name for myself by having a public row with some of the house builders about the fact that I said that if they weren't careful, they'd be building the slums of the future. So I think it's really difficult to answer the generality. Some of the apartments that have been built on brownfield sites are great, others not so much. Some of them have terrible problems, really big problems, because they have been built to poor standards. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the houses we build in the future are built to the highest possible standards. We have a white paper out, which I know was broadly consensual. Sorry, Will, lots of consensus today, broadly consensual across the parties for what we need to do to ensure building standards are improved in the future. And we need to make sure that our new placemaking policies, again, broadly consensual across the Senedd, are put in place. So we've been building exemplar sites, which include a lot of green spaces, much bigger flat sizes, homes that you can live in for your life, and not places where if you stand in the middle, you can touch all four walls with your arms and there's nowhere to hang your coat. So I'm really keen to make sure that we build in the future homes that are sustainable forever in Wales. So, the answer, I'm afraid, is kind of it depends which one you're talking about. So there are some apartments in Cardiff Bay and in Swansea and other places with big apartment complexes that are great. Others are atrocious. What we need to do is make sure that the atrocious ones are not allowed in the future, and that we have a plan to retrospectively sort them out, and that the future houses that we build are fit for purpose and are homes for life. And they're also green in the sense that they are carbon neutral, carbon passive, low carbon, one of the standards, and that we build on the innovative housing programs data to make sure that we put those standards in place. So we will need to legislate for that. We will need to change our building regulations to make sure that people have to comply with them, and we will have to do some cultural work with our big building firms. And can I just put a shout out for the SME sector here, who very rarely build houses that are some standard and have actually come on board with us on the space standards pretty easily. So a lot of work with the big house builders is also necessary. Sorry.
Can I get you to name names? Can I get you to name names?
I'm not going to name names, but I've publicly had arguments with some of the big house builders. Some of them have changed their patterns of behaviour now and have seen the error of their ways and have committed to building to our standards. And I'm very pleased to see that. And I hope the two that haven't done that yet will do so shortly.
Are these apartments built on brownfield sites? Are they meeting local housing needs and contributing to sustainable communities?
Oh, I mean, obviously, overwhelmingly, I would say no. I can't know exactly what the situation is with all of them, but I think that as a fundamental principle, well, what I think that we need to be moving away from, and I would pick up on what Julie was saying there in terms of this tends to be a problem of the larger developers. It tends to be that they will be building as many homes, well, they'll be building as many homes to make the biggest profit possible for themselves, and that doesn't often translate into the biggest profit for the community in the wider sense of the term profit. And again, I touched on it earlier, that I think that we need to be moving away from thinking of housing as something that is invested in, something that is purely for monetary purposes. We need to be thinking about how homes connect with the community. The reason why we need to be making sure that why we are so keen to make sure that we don't build on greenfield sites is that actually they are the places where people's mental health, people's sense of community, people's sense of belonging, their connection with the land, with the community, those things are also interlinked. But I mean, I think that whether or not houses support the community and interlink with the community, that is partly about the quality of the housing. It's also partly about whether the developers have adhered to their Section 106 principle, what would be expected under that. So whether or not they have actually delivered on making sure that, I don't know, they have parks or playing areas for the children, whether or not they actually do link up with public transport. I think that there are lots of different questions. So it's difficult to give a definitive answer, not knowing exactly where all of these developments are in Cardiff Bay. But I think that at the moment we need to have a fundamental shift in how development happens, and it needs to be something which is more connected with the community from the starting point. Communities need, okay, yeah.
You could have kept going. It's okay. The next question is one that in my role we get a lot of questions and around this, and this comes from Karen. Single parents are being discriminated against in the private rented sector, as many letting agents insist on meeting a basic minimum income without consideration of welfare benefits and child maintenance benefits. What can be done to stop this? We'll go to Delith first.
Devolution of the welfare system, again, I would say as the principal thing that needs to happen. I mean, it's just desperately unfair that single parents are discriminated against in that way. I think that, yes, they obviously there are certain things that could happen, I suppose, on a local authority basis, but fundamentally, I think we're just going to be tinkering around the edges where we still have, where we need to have the whole welfare system devolved in order to make it a far more compassionate system.
So do you not think that without devolving welfare, you don't think this problem can be solved?
Well, I think that they're probably, I mean, Julie will probably know this in greater depth than me, but I think that in order to actually fundamentally change it, we probably would need devolution of welfare.
Thank you, Delith. I'll go to Julie James.
Oh, now we are going to disagree, so apologies, Delith, but I don't agree with the devolution of welfare. Welfare is redistributive, and the South East, took over many centuries has taken the mineral wealth of Wales and invested it, and it needs to redistribute that wealth across the United Kingdom. And that's what welfare does. So I appreciate why Dallas wants to do it, and that we have investigated administrating it differently, because we both disagree with the mandation and sanctioning regimes, for example. But I think there is a real problem with how much money we would have if we devolved it. I think there is an answer to the private rented sector thing. We've partially answered it already in the Welsh Parliament, because we've passed something called the Rented Homes Act 2016. We had serious problems with bringing that act into force. Actually, we just managed to do it by regulation just before the Senedd rose. I'm very grateful to Dalith for all the work she put in on that as well. And so now at the end of this next year, we will be able to implement that act, and that will put a lot more obligations on landlords not to do these kinds of things. And it actually slightly turns the tide of power between the landlord and the tenant. So there are some things that will make it better. However, the biggest thing we can do is build enough social housing, because most of those single parents would be eligible for social housing. If we had enough, they would get social housing, and social housing is the answer for them, because then they don't have that problem. And also the way that welfare is run at the moment, if you're in social housing, of course you get your rent paid, which you don't if you're in the private rented sector, ludicrously. Pity David's gone, because we could both have ganged up on him to say how idiotic that particular welfare rule is. But I think there are things that can be done, and I think the Renting Homes Act, when it's enforced at the end of this year, will help that.
Thanks very much. The next question comes from Keith Edwards. He says, the housing sector does huge amounts to create jobs, training and develop local foundational economies, from the Can-Do toolkits on. But we can do so much more. What are the panelists' ambitions in this area? Julie, you had a smile.
If you remember, I said if Keith Edwards wasn't in this webinar, I would eat my hat with ketchup. So I'm delighted to find that I don't have to do that. Keith is ubiquitous at these housing events. I think the Can-Do toolkit, I also mentioned in a previous answer, because it's an outstanding example of what can be done with the levers of public procurement. So what we can do is we can make sure that all public sector and quasi-public sector organisations in Wales use the Can-Do toolkit properly. That is to say that they use their public procurement power and spending power to make sure that they get the standards they need. So effectively an economic contract that goes alongside the goods you're buying. So for example, if you are procuring I don't know, ceiling panels for your housing and you're an RSL, then you can make sure that the people providing the ceiling panels are doing so in the most carbon neutral fashion, with a decent supply chain, without any modern slavery inside it, paying the living wage. You know, a whole series of other things can go alongside that procurement that drive standards across Wales in a way that's perfectly achievable. And Keith's done a lot of work on this already. It can also drive skills and better employment prospects into the sector. So I think what we can do is we can get, we have a draft Social Partnership Act on the books at the moment. I'm hoping that whoever is the new Welsh Government will implement that act. And what that is doing is putting a lot of those kinds of procurement requirements onto public and quasi-public sector authorities across Wales. Quasi-public sector, I mean things like registered social landlords, FE colleges, higher education institutions, and so on. So partly in the public sector. And that could make a very serious difference to both the wealth and the foundational economy firms right across Wales.
Thanks very much, Dilith.
I think this is probably an area where we are going to agree again. I think that we need to learn in this from, I think that a lot in terms of supply chains and making sure that yes, that they are fair in that way, that they're connected as much as possible to the local community, that where there are suppliers who are very local to where the homes are going to be built or the work is going to be done as well. I think that will, it's a principle that we can, it isn't just true of this area. I think it's something that if we can shorten supply chains as much as possible, as well as making them fairer, more ethical, more Welsh, then that's going to be good for everyone. It's going to be, so I'm struggling to find something where I would massively disagree with Julie on here, but I think that the general trajectory of where we want to go is probably very similar, actually.
Thank you. I think I think a lot of people watching might actually appreciate the kind of continuity and the assurances that if lots of parties agree, I think just from the comments people have put in the chat. Let's talk about this next question, which comes from Anonymous, which I'm presuming is someone who hasn't given their name, not the internet vigilantes. Will all parties commit to the continuation of the innovative housing programme? And anyone want to take that first?
That's really easy, yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll go to the next question. If any of
It
you
would be
want...
exciting though if that had been the actual vigilante though. I mean, why would they be asking about that, I wonder?
Well, they've really stepped down their ambitions, to be honest, if they're hacking into webinars. The next question comes...
Let me expand on that very slightly, well, actually. So yes, the continuation of the IHP, because we need to get innovation into housing. So we will continue to look for innovation and have rounds where we fund and de-risk innovation. But one of the other things I absolutely want to see is the scaling up of the ones that have been successful. So I just want to add that second bit. So we have now a number of projects that have been through the IHP program. We know they work, we know they deliver what they said they would deliver, and now we need to scale them up across Wales. So that second bit is also important.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to go to Craig Stevenson, who says simply, where do the party manifestos stand on the Right to Housing campaign?
I think we've done that one.
Yeah, so Plaid does commit to right to housing and ensuring that Welsh law and right to adequate housing. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Claire Budden, we have talked a lot about social housing standards, which are some of the best in Wales, and a desire to enforce better standards for new build. How would you support improvements of standards in older stock of PRS and for poorer owner occupiers? Renewal area type programs made some positive interventions in the past.
Shall I have a go at that first, or do you want to, Della?
Well, I'm happy. Happy for you too. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I briefly touched on this earlier. Well, so we are looking at a number of schemes to help private rented sector landlords bring their properties up to standard. We fear that some of them will just not have the funds to do so or not have the desire to do so. And rather than lose those properties to the private rented sector, which would be disastrous while we try and ramp up our social house building, as I said, what we'd like to do is encourage those landlords to give their houses over to registered social landlords or the local authority, and that we would then fund the local authority of the RSL to bring the house up to standard in return for a lease of that house for at least 5 years, preferably 10 or 15 years, in which case it could have a social rented tenant in it for all of that time. And in doing so, we would bring the entire stock up across Wales, because that's a really big issue for us. We often find that the poorest people living in the largest multi-generational households also live in the worst of the housing stock in Wales. One of the great things about Wales is that we have Rent Smart Wales, and because of Rent Smart Wales, we actually know where each of those individual houses is. That's not something that the rest of the UK has. So we can target those houses. We can actually approach the individual landlords and offer them the scheme individually and have a dialogue with them about coming on board with that. So we can slowly get the stock standard up. And then, as I said, we have several schemes for owner occupiers and for people who inherit uninhabitable houses, which is, you'd be surprised at how common that is across Wales, for somebody to inherit a house of their granny that, you know, really isn't habitable. So we have a series of grants available for people to bring those homes up to standard in return for living in them for 5 years or giving them across as social housing for 5 years, rather than just taking the grant and selling it on the open market, which doesn't really do what we want to do. That's been rolled out in 5 local authorities so far. It's been very successful, so we'll be looking to roll that out across the piece as well. And then the last piece I wanted to say is it's not just poorer owner occupiers. We want everybody in Wales to bring their home up to standard, because we want to tackle the climate change issues as well as the housing issues. And so we need to look at incentives in the council tax schemes and in land transaction tax and so on, so that you get a benefit if you've invested in your house and brought it up to EPC A. Sorry for the jargon, but the highest possible insulation standard, so you're leaking the least heat into the air. And then there's a piece of work to be done with renewables and the grid as well.
Plaid Cymru.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with the last point that Julie was making there, that this is important for everyone. Obviously, there's a particular need to help people who are least able to afford it, but from an environmental point of view, it makes sense for everyone that we are incentivizing bringing these homes up to environmental standards. I have outlined earlier that our policy would be to retrofit the existing housing stock where that's necessary over a 30-year term, so all homes in Wales. We would also, a lot of what Plaid is putting forward in terms of creating 50,000 new homes, but that isn't just building. I think 5,000 of the homes that we're talking about under that bracket then would be bringing existing homes that are currently uninhabitable or just empty back up to standard. So I mean that would obviously require a huge or significant investment over the Senedd term, but unless we actually invest, then it not only is that space that is going to waste, it's also, I think, for civic pride in towns and villages, it's bad if you see if it's a place that was a business that's shut down, then that's bad for people, other businesses not wanting to move in there. If it's a flat that's above a shop that's closed down, then that's obviously not going to be as attractive. But in the village that's closest to where I live is Nelson, and there is a huge, it was an old rectory home, and it's kind of going to rack and ruin, and it's such a beautiful plot and it's a beautiful building. I think it's now going to have to be knocked down because it's taken so long. I don't know what's gone wrong with it altogether, but somehow it just hasn't really been possible to actually bring it back up to standard, and that's a loss for the area because there was a big history with that building. So I think for lots of reasons, not just to do with housing but to do with civic pride, this is really important.
Thank you. We've got just under 10 minutes left. You guys are putting an absolute shift. I'm aware your workload has increased since David left, but we've got loads of really good questions still coming in. So I'm going to try and rattle through for a few more. This one comes from Mandy Powell. Your parties have all pledged to pay social care workers at least the real living wage, but we know that lots of homelessness and housing support workers are also on low wages despite their life-changing and often life-saving work. Will you assure us that your party's promise to pay the real living wage will include homelessness and housing support too?
Yes.
Yes.
Thought that might be a short one as well. We've got another question from Bill Rowlands. How do you intend to work with local authorities to deliver on your plans in regards to preventing homelessness?
Do you want to go first, Dallas? Because
I think that
the last one.
Yeah, I'd set out, thanks Judy, I'd set out some of the things that we would do. So we would require local authorities to adopt a rapid free housing model. So anyone who's experiencing homelessness would be guaranteed suitable accommodation. They'd have their own room. They wouldn't just have floor space for 12 hours a day. So again, coming back to what Julie and I were agreeing on earlier about the idea that we shouldn't just be accommodating people, we should be giving them finding solutions that are actually sustainable as quickly as possible. We'd repeal Section 74 of the Housing Wales Act, which at the moment would allow local authorities to end their duty to help people who actually are still presenting as homeless. We would bring a permanent end to the implementation of no recourse to public funds conditions in Wales, again dependent on other circumstances needing to coalesce for that, and we would abolish the priority need system by the end of the Senedd term as well.
Judy James.
Yeah, so I fear we're going to agree with each other again. So I think we've done something amazing in Wales over the pandemic. You know, it's been a rubbish time for everybody, and your heart goes out to people who've lost people and so on. But there have been a couple of silver linings, and one of them is the amazing response to the homelessness issue that we had. We had a unique opportunity at the beginning of the pandemic because we suddenly had student accommodation and hotels and bed and breakfast and all the rest of it who were anxious for business and were empty. And so we took full advantage of that, and we got people in off the streets and, you know, people who had insecure accommodation, sofa surfing and so on. We had absolutely no idea how many people that was. We knew that the spot counts were unreliable and likely to be undercounting, but we've actually housed over 7,000 people over that year. Now, they wouldn't all have been in that position at the beginning because the pandemic has taken its toll on relationships and so on. So there've been a steady stream of people presenting as homeless each month, and that's currently costing us £1.8 million a month on top of the usual housing allocations for local authorities. I'm absolutely determined to carry on doing that. So we will have to repeal Section 74. We'll have to stop priority need and intentionality. We will have to do a whole series of other things, but we also have to find some interim measures so that we don't have a gap in between. I know Delith agrees with this. So, you know, we'll have to work together as parties to get that legislation through, and we'll also have to make sure we have an interim solution to stop people going back. I've been really clear, and I'll say it again here in this hustings, you know, there will be no return to the streets for Wales. So we are not having this again. The old system was a way of rationing an insecure and poor supply of social housing. Now that the controls have been taken away by the Conservatives, who've suddenly seen the light after 40 years, and we've managed to get the stop of the right to buy legislation through, we can ramp up the stock for social housing again, and we can get people into their housing in the right place, of the right sort, with the right support that they actually need. All the housing support stuff that we talked about earlier goes with that. And we'll be able, therefore, to not have a system where we're rationing a scarce resource, but one where we're allocating a proper community-supported housing piece. And, you know, that solves a lot of problems we haven't touched on today, and we're about to run out of time. But there are loads of problems across Wales with second homes and empty properties and all the rest of it that we can touch on. And we can do that because we've done it. We've done it this year. We've proved that we can do it. So, you know, now that we've proved that we can do it, why would we go back? So we can absolutely do this. I cannot say how incredibly proud and humbled I have been by the staff working on the front line for this, which is why I was so absolutely happy to say that, of course, we will fund it so that staff can be paid the real living wage, because we don't do this at the expense of the people on the front line. So we absolutely need to do that as well. I actually even don't like the term front line. It makes it sound like a war, and that's really awful. But that's a whole nother hour's seminar, Will, that I'm sure you'll chair for us at some point.
There are so many metaphors that are built into the way we speak that are based on war. It's sobering.
Yeah. Well, after Julie fired some shots at the Welsh Conservatives as well, as an example. We're coming to an end. There's one more question that we're going to go to, and then I'm going to ask you both just for a brief statement, just to sum up, if you'd like to. So this comes from Scott Sanders at Link. Keeping rents and broader living costs affordable for RSL tenants is critical. At a time when RSLs wish to stretch their businesses to build more homes and decarbonise existing homes, what level of financial support will each party commit over the term to ensure affordability is maintained and investment at scale is achieved? We'll go to Delith.
On to this, I think that actually the role of RSLs is really critical. So Scott, I'm not going to give a figure. I'm going to say that I think that we need to listen to the sector. I think we need to see, after COVID has changed so much in terms of not just what needs to happen, but what actually the kind of the margins of what is seen as what is achievable have shifted in a really good way. So actually, I think we need to listen to the sector to see how we can push things, how we can actually support not just, the tenants, but also people working in the RSLs. So I would, Scott, I know that we can't know at this stage if there is a critical figure that you'll need, but I think that we need to listen to the sector and make sure that we can support you.
Julie James, can you give a critical figure?
No, but I can give a critical methodology, which is kind of the same thing. So we have an extensive rent control system in Wales already, and we negotiate that with our councils and our RSLs on a 5-year rolling programme. And in fact, we did it. The pandemic has messed up my time sense, so I think it was 18 months ago, but I could be wrong because the pandemic seems like a decade and about 4 months at the same time to me. So forgive me, but it wasn't. It was towards the end of the Senedd term. We agreed the next 5-year rolling rent programme for social housing in Wales. but it needs an overhaul. So at the moment we have bandings, and you have to fit inside a banding for you at the size of your RSL and various other things. It also we have to keep a weather eye on the welfare system as well to make sure that social tenants who are on welfare actually get their housing paid and so on. So it's quite a complicated system by which we do it. This time we did it, we also agreed with the entire social sector in Wales that we would have absolutely no evictions from social sector housing into homelessness in Wales. And I'm extremely delighted to say that they have all held to that bargain with us, because it's absolutely, if you're evicted from social housing, that's the end of the line for you. You are going to be homeless. So we absolutely needed to stop that. So I'm delighted that they were able to do that. That doesn't mean there's no evictions in social housing, because you will get moved from your specific flat if you're antisocial behaviour or whatever, but you will be rehoused in different accommodation elsewhere. So we've been, I don't underestimate the difficulties that that's caused, but I've been delighted to do that. The next piece of work we need to do is to work with the RSLs and the councils to understand the level of investment that they need to be able to build at the pace that we want them to do, and to understand their business model for that, to understand what the rental stream incomes provide by way of satisfaction to the lenders for that, and to ramp up the role of the Development Bank for Wales in making sure that all of them have a bank that they can get that investment from. So it's quite a complicated set of things, Will, to cover off in the time we have available, but I'm happy to say that we are very committed to doing that. So this is a balance between the affordability of the rent for the individual tenant, which is paramount for them. £2 to them, it might be the end of the world, but it won't be enough to give a rental stream to borrow the money to build the next lot of housing. So it's that balance that we need to strike. So we've done that for the next 5 years, and that gives us the time period to overhaul the system to make sure that we've got it right.
Fantastic. I think we'll probably run out of time before we can do statements, unless either of you is bursting to make a statement. I imagine you feel like you've spoken a lot in the last hour and a half. Finally, just want to say thank you so much to Delith Jewell, Julie James and David Melding for taking the time, and good luck in the forthcoming election. With exactly 2 weeks to go until polling day, and with all the party manifestos released, this election presents an opportunity to take a fresh look at old challenges, to raise ambitions and to come back stronger. We hope to see a real motivation for change in the next Senedd term, and the next Welsh Government putting home at the centre of their plans. You can find out more information about Community Housing Cymru's home campaign at the website www.hereforhomes.org.uk. That's hereforhomes.org.uk. That's FOR, not the number 4. Community Housing Cymru would like to extend a warm thank you to the following organisations for partnering together for this hustings. And I'll go through quite an extensive list. There's the Woolwich, TPAS Cymru, Cymforth Cymru, Tai Pawb, Shelter Cymru, Crisis, Chartered Institute of Housing Cymru, the Welsh NHS Confederation, End Youth Homelessness Cymru, Canal Cymru, Welsh Cooperative Centre, the Federation of Master Builders, National Energy Action Cymru, and Town Planning Institute Cymru. And a big thank you to everyone who watched and everyone who submitted questions. We're very sorry we weren't able to get to all of them, but thank you ever so much for watching.
Bye now. Thank you.
Thank you.